as the huge burst of energy gradually dispersed the surrounding gray clouds and lights up the entire dead city in an ostentatious fashion. Every freshman of the Imperial University who had been holding their breath in hiding suddenly stared at the explosion in the sky, some in amazement and admiration, others in worry that it would cause trouble, and a few were indifferent. But almost everyone was curiously wondering what expert had that level of insanely flashy entrance, unaware that this supposed expert was one of their own. Only Chu Zhou and Lu Qingzhu were familiar with this high-profile appearance. And speaking of these two, in a building somewhere, a pale-faced Lu Qingzhu looked at the blue light explosion outside the window and already knew he had entered this dead city. However, she was in no condition to leave where she was hiding. Unlike Chu Zhou, who was already rushing towards the location of the explosion with a sword in hand, he knew that Yi's flare had made him the focus of the entire city. Anyway, back to Yi, the arrogant fucker looked at the restless city and realized he had not only attracted the attention of his teammates, but their enemies as well. Right on cue, Yi heard the sound of footsteps nearby, and at some point, a strange figure wearing black clothes and a white pig head mask had appeared behind him. In this mysterious person's hand was a rusty chain, at the end of which was a blood-stained long knife. Seeing this strange-looking man, he could tell at first glance that he was no good. So without any hesitation, blue flames came out of Yi's feet, leaving a scorching mark on the floor. Then, accompanied by a sonic boom, he was upon the guy in an instant. He punched directly at the opponent's pig-headed mask with his atomic fist, enunciating his intention to rip the guy's head off. But unexpectedly, the moment Yi's atomic fist hit his target's head, the long sharp knife in this mysterious person's hand also stabbed him in the abdomen, directly ignoring his martial arts shield and Demora's skin defense. But surprising enough, Yi's atomic fist, which was thousands of degrees high and could even melt steel, only managed to just submerge the pig-headed man's head in blue flames, but didn't really burn it off. The pig-headed man clenched the handle of the sharp knife that had stabbed into Yi's abdomen. He exerted force with his arms, trying to cut Yi's body open, but no matter how hard he tried, he failed to swing the long knife. In fact, his sharp knife was stuck in Yi's quickly healing muscle layer. The pig-headed man immediately wanted to retreat, but Yi grabbed the rusty iron chain wrapped around the pig-headed man's arm tightly and pulled him towards him. The guy's strength wasn't much, but his weapon was very special. It seems to have the ability to ignore any defense. He grinned mischievously and questioned what the hell the guy was. He then grabbed this strange-looking guy's pig-headed mask with both hands and opened his pig-headed mouth, declaring that it was time for his oral surgery. He should stop resisting and open obediently. What followed next was a blue beam of high-temperature light gushing out of Yi's mouth and pouring directly into the guy's pig-headed mask. The pig-headed man struggled violently with his limbs, but no matter what he did, he could not break free from Yi's firm hold. As the smell of burnt barbecue wafted out, the pig-headed man finally stopped struggling. But his pig mouth had been pierced by the atomic breath and his neck had been melted by the high temperature. Holding the pig's headed mask, he declared himself as an honest person. He did what he said he would. But in that moment, he also noticed something inside the mask he was holding. He pulled out a green pendant from the wide-open mouth of the pig's headed mask. With this, Yi was convinced that everything was actually a trial of the Imperial University, and they were probably supposed to kill monsters for loot. Also, the long sharp knife which was logged inside his abdomen shatters into tiny fragments in that moment. It seems the masked person's weapon must have been blessed with the martial energy of a high-level warrior, making it extremely sharp. Once the martial energy faded, the weapon reverted back to an ordinary item. He stared at the pendant in his hand, thinking of how to pass the trial arranged by the Imperial University. The entire setting felt like a battle royale. So did he have to find a bunch of masked enemies and take the pendants from their masks? Just then, he sensed an arrow aiming towards the back of his head. But before the arrow could get any closer, a ferocious evil shadow instantly rushed out of Yi's body, opening several bloody mouths from all angles, stopping the arrow and biting it into pieces. He looked in the direction where the arrow came from and saw another masked figure with crossbows. Already pissed off with the earlier ambush, Yi rushed forward with the intention of ending this fucker's existence when suddenly, a sharp spear pierced through the concrete ground directly in front of him and pierced his heart. Then the masked figure also seized this opportunity and shot several sharp arrows directly at Yi's vital points. After getting rid of the pig-headed man, he hadn't even had time to catch his breath before he was surrounded by murderous intent from all directions, but it was still a bit too naive to think of taking him down this way. Yi roared angrily and summoned the power of the humanoid giant from his monster template. Intense flames and steam burst out from his body, and huge ribs grew around him, woven with a burning new colossal figure entirely enveloped in dark and red evil spirits. The masked figure with crossbows, clearly scared shitless, stared at the insanely massive fist descending upon him like a freaking meteor. He roared as his explosive punch shattered the entire building into a cloud of dust and debris, and with it, the masked figure with crossbows. Most of the freshmen watched the chaos from afar, wondering what was going on for an entire building to collapse so suddenly. He walked out of the dusty debris with the spear in hand. He wanted to see the person who nearly skewered him like a kebab. And in that moment, the person in question appeared in front of him on his own initiative. This time around, the person was wearing a red-eyed rabbit mask and a black suit. In his hand, he held a brand new spear. It seems that as long as these masked men's bodies are not dead, their weapons can be regenerated continuously. The guy bent his legs, and his calf muscles bulged as big as a balloon. Then he exerted his entire body strength to jump and flew towards he like a cannonball, his spear aimed at him. He raised his leg and tried to kick the rabbit-headed man mid-air, but his body was too soft. Before the force of the kick could hit the rabbit-headed man, he spun in the air and changed his trajectory with his spear still aimed at his target. He was stunned to see this. The mysterious rabbit-headed man knew martial arts. What the hell? Just as the spear came about a few centimeters away from He's stunned expression, a familiar chill joined the battlefield. And with the power of the ice element dragon, a massive ice wall suddenly blocked the spear of the rabbit-headed man. So, under the shade of a couple ruined buildings, Chu Zhou announced his presence by encasing the rabbit-headed man with an ice wall several meters high. With his spear in hand, the rabbit-headed man looked around in confusion when he suddenly sensed an attack from above. This attack was from none other than Chu Zhou, who comments on how close he was from being speared in the head. He should leave this battle to him. The rabbit-headed man managed to evade Chu Zhou's attack when he pierced the spot the target initially was with his sword. As countless ice shards erupted from underneath the ground, the rabbit-headed man jumped out of the encased wall of ice. And while in the air, it counterattacked with his spear. The sword and the spear collided multiple times in an instant, creating dazzling sparks in the air. In a few seconds, the two men fought dozens of rounds with the weapons in their hands. Sparks flickered in the dark space. Even though the rabbit-headed man had the advantage with his spear weapon, he could not gain an advantage over Chu Zhou's superb swordsmanship. In another sword fight, Chu Zhou released the power of ice and successfully froze the spear in the rabbit-headed man's hand. After the weapon was briefly sealed, the rabbit-headed man quickly fell into a disadvantage. Chu Zhou seized this opportunity and punched the rabbit-headed man in the chest with his open palm. Although the rabbit-headed man was sent flying, he still managed to block the full force of the attack with his frozen spear. It tried to retreat quickly, but a sudden pair of large hands that had been patiently waiting reached out from the shadows and grabbed him tightly. He, back in his colossal humanoid form, was finally able to catch the little cutie who had been evading him like a scared, terrifying bunny he was. What followed after was another massive burst of martial and unstable atomic energy that lit up the surrounding gray clouds, and again, broke through the silence of the city. Only this time around, a couple ruined buildings was destroyed in the process. Countless freshmen who were attracted by the previous explosion were silently paying attention to any commotion in He's direction. Meanwhile, as the scene shifted to a strange urban space a few minutes ago, two freshmen who were in a temporary alliance were hiding in a building not far away. Wondering why there was no movements in He's location after his flashy presence, a freshman asked his partner if the guy who barged in so ostentatiously was dead. He must be his partner, a female freshman replied calmly. They had had over a dozen people ambush those masked men, yet none were injured. And on top of that, their weapons could break through any defense. They were simply opponents beyond their current level, and they had no way in dealing with them. That guy who came in blasting skyward and started talking trash was too arrogant. He must be a student from a small city, definitely a local, who got into the Imperial University by sheer luck. A frog in a well and probably full of self-importance. To be honest, the top scholars in big cities were simply not on the same level as those in small cities like them. Also, she heard that Yan Zhengxiong and Ouyang Zhe from Magic City, Lan Yusi from Deep Blue City, and Xin Chan from Liuli Island have already started hunting down the masked men. But she really doesn't know how they did it. The guy was amazed at how insanely strong these freshmen were. But doesn't that imply that the freshman champion would be one of them? The lady disagrees resolutely. Every freshman president have always been a local from the imperial capital. And against those Huadu prodigies, students from other regions of Xia Kingdom were no match, and therefore could not compete at all. The martial arts cultivation resources they have received since childhood are worlds apart. It was in this moment that the two were interrupted by a sudden loud explosive blue beam that lighted up the entire city. The two freshmen looked up at the sky, both stunned. Because this exaggerated blue light streaked across the sky, dividing the gray sky into two. The two looked at each other, both confused. What was that powerful beam just now? Was it an electromagnetic cannon? But how could there be an electromagnetic cannon in this city? In another corner of the city, the new students who were actively tracking the animal-masked men also stopped and silently looked at the exaggerated beam of light in the sky. Yan Zhengxiong placed the broadsword in his hand on the ground, and the huge weight caused the blade to pierce a dead horsehead masked man and sink directly into the ground. He kicked the horsehead masked man under his feet and looked at his good friend and the top scholar in Magic City, Ouyang-Zhe. Ouyang-Zhe was wearing a black jacket with a white sweatshirt underneath. At this moment, he was wearing the hood of the sweatshirt and staring at the blue beam of light in the distance that had penetrated the sky. Yan Zhengxiong asked of Ouyang-Ze's thoughts on the blue beam. Ouyang-Zhe answered that the attack method doesn't seem like the masked man style. It's most likely some newcomer's method. New student? Yan Zhengxiong repeated with a slight edge in his tone. You see, apart from those freshmen from the imperial capital, there really wasn't anyone else who could possess such exaggerated power. Yan Zhengxiong truly couldn't comprehend this unexpected development. Yan Zhengxiong suggests they go check it out. After all, they have already collected the pendants of rat, dog, monkey, and horse. Lan Yusi from Deep Blue City has at least one goat pendant. Xin Chun from Liuli Island has at least one snake pendant. And a female freshman named Lu Qingzhu seems to have killed the Minotaur and obtained an ox pendant. If the masked men are really arranged according to the 12 Chinese zodiac, then there are only 5 pendants left. Pig, rabbit, chicken, tiger, and dragon. As for the dragon, it's undoubtedly an absolute monster. Definitely a creature that could kill anyone with one touch. It's obviously a boss that can only be escaped and not fought. As for the remaining pendants, there are definitely a few of them in the mysterious freshman's place where those blue beams were released. Xin Chun and Lan Yusi will most likely be attracted over there as well. Ouyang-Zhe told Yan Zhengxiong that the game had entered the final round. If they want to win, they had to snatch it from the others. As Ouyang-Zhe made this bold declaration, half of his face was shrouded in the shadow of his hood, and an obvious flame of ambition flickered in his pupils. Meanwhile, as the scene shifted back to Yi and Chu Zhou, the duo had successfully obtained the rabbit pendant. The rabbit-headed man took the full force of the atomic breath at close range and was vaporized without any resistance, leaving the pendant which remained intact. Seeing the rabbit pendant in Yi's hands, Chu Zhou felt a little confused and asked for clarification, wanting to know what the pendant was. He answered after a brief consideration. Before Chu Zhou arrived, his friend had already killed a guy wearing a pig head mask and got a pendant with a pig shape carved on it from his mask. If he had to guess correctly, this trial should be about collecting all the pendants in the heads of these animals. This made Chu Zhou ask if they were going to proactively hunt for the masked men. Exactly, he answered upon hearing this question. On the rooftop just now, another mysterious figure shot an arrow at him. It must be another masked man. Apparently, the masked figure with crossbows survived and escaped during the chaos. He clearly remembered the exact location where the arrow was shot at him, and he intends on finding the masked figure and settling the score. The two quickly came to where the archer used to be and found no traces of the masked figure with crossbows. But since Yi was hit with his arrow, he can track him with it. After a while of intense tracking and searching the dead city, they came across what looks like a battlefield. It seems someone has already gotten to their target first. Chu Zhou looked at the traces of the fierce battle on the ground, and it seems that the damage was caused by some high-temperature attack which was particularly eye-catching. He touched the scorch marks on the ground, and it was very warm, which meant that the opponent had not gone far. The next moment, Chu Zhou's ice demon dragon bloodline gave rise to a strong hostility. An ice crystal dragon aura automatically appeared on the surface of his body. Chu Zhou clenched his fists tightly and slashed out with a sword in a certain direction based on his instinct. A 10-meter-high ice front rose from the ground and crashed straight into the air somehow, and with it a pained sound from a fellow freshman, Lan Yusi. In a calm yet disappointed tone, she stated that her optical invisibility got detected. Lan Yusi feigned being a delicate girl, and with her pair of blue-purple eyeshadow that particularly highlighted her attractiveness and helplessness. Her demeanor was a far cry from someone with ill intentions, or so it might seem. But for someone caught sneaking around, Lan Yusi didn't seem the least bit threatened when Chu Zhou straight up struck her with his ice element. He also pointed out how anyone who preferred hiding in the shadows were always up to no good. Anyway, before Lan Yusi could reply, another freshman, a guy, with exquisite clothes and gray middle-parted hair appeared out of thin air. The moment he appeared, the temperature around him began to rise rapidly as red flames danced around his hands. He told a cautious Lan Yusi to get out of the way before his palms quickly turned shiny and red like a branding iron. Activating a genetic technique, the Flame Demon Battle Body, Zinchan slammed his palm against the impressive ice front. Flames flickered in the ice as they shattered into broken fragments, and a large amount of water vapor exploded, quickly filling the entire area. Zinchan, with a laid-back yet arrogant demeanor, held a pack of cigarette as he teased Lan Yusi for having such a weak optical camouflage. It's no-brainer that she was discovered so easily. He didn't exchange pleasantries and went straight to the point, asking if the two were planning on ambushing them. With an innocent look, Lan Yusi replied before Zinchan could, stating that he got it wrong. Everything that had just transpired seemed to be a little misunderstanding. They just dealt with a guy wearing a chicken mask and hid only to lure out other masked men. Zinchan, who was standing aside, took out a cigarette as if nothing had happened, rubbed his fingers together and snapped them, then smoothly lit the cigarette with a tiny flame on his fingertip. Really? Then what's this supposed to mean? His hand suddenly grabbed to the side, and a woman who looked exactly like Lan Yusi appeared out of nowhere. He grabbed her throat tightly, raised her in the air, and as she struggled in pain, she dropped a dagger with a strange blue-purple color. Obviously, the dagger was coated with poison. He casually crushed the neck of the clone in his hand as the expression of the real Lan Yusi instantly darkened. Zinchan beside him gave a rogue smile. He had never thought that Lan Yusi's sneak attack could succeed. Otherwise, it would be too boring. After smoking the entire cigarette in one breath, he dropped it and took a step forward. Zinchan puffed out his cheeks, and they enlarged grotesquely like an inflated balloon. He then exhaled a large cloud of black fog towards Yi and Chuzhou. The two retreated in time and avoided the black mist spitted out in their direction. But they didn't expect Lan Yusi to take out a yellow fan with flashing runes and violently fan the black mist. The strong wind blew, causing the black fog to spread rapidly, submerging Yi and Chuzhou. Zinchan rubbed a massive fireball from his fingertips and decided to heat things up. He shot it straight into the black fog. A deafening boom immediately sounded, and with it, the black fog was instantly ignited. The scorching temperature caused the air to twist and turned into a ball of flames. Satisfied, Lan Yusi smiled and covered his face with her fan. So what if their opponents were strong? They were still no match for them. Anyway, just as the creepy-looking bastard raised his eyebrows proudly and gave a sadistic smile, a thunderous clap rang out. He had clapped his hands in the fire cloud, and the incredible shockwave generated directly extinguished the entire cloud of flames. Zinchan's eyes bulged out as he shouted in absolute disbelief. He couldn't comprehend how a simple clap was enough to dispel his fire cloud. Zinchan's incredulous expression suddenly turned into confusion when he saw a fist inches away from rearranging his face. Looking at the incoming fist, his pupils shrank. He wanted to defend or dodge, but compared to that fist, he was too slow. He had activated his mountain-blocking fist and made his way towards him like a torpedo. A reverberating bang sounded as Zinchan's right cheek flattened with half of his face. He instantly turned into a straight line and was trashed away like a ragdoll. Lan Yusi didn't expect Yi's speed and strength to be so terrifying. This kind of physical strength made her feel incredibly powerless. You see, most of the freshmen, including Lan Yusi and Zinchan, currently don't have any skills that can advance them to the warrior rank. When their martial arts cultivation remains at the level of a martial artist apprentice, their physical strength are always blocked by a membrane. Even though the upper limit of the freshmen at the martial arts stage of the Imperial University was higher, there was always a limit. But Yi was nothing like a college freshman because he has the system template. Even if his martial arts skills remain at the 9th level, he can still stack up his physical stats by increasing his template compatibility. Anyway, Lan Yusi didn't know that she would be fighting against an absolute monster, that teaming up with Zinchan wasn't even enough. The suffocating aura alone was enough for her to regret ever facing an opponent she had zero chance of winning. She was about to flee when she felt a sudden coldness at her feet. Lan Yusi immediately realized that something was wrong. She had been so focused on Yi that she'd forgotten about Chuzhou, who had frozen her feet in place. Lan Yusi waved the wind-attributed magic fan in her hand with all her strength, creating multiple wind blades which shattered the ice underneath her feet. Lan Yusi's light body was quickly lifted up by the wind the very moment she freed herself. But before she could flee, he suddenly grabbed her delicate ankle. In the face of Lan Yusi's evident shock and absolute fear, he slammed her to the ground, creating a shallow crater as she drops her fan. He showed no trace of hesitation as he raised his fist. And the moment Lan Yusi saw this, she immediately consumed a large amount of martial energy in order to escape from Yi's clutches. A strange cloud of jade energy exploded on the spot, and as countless clones of Lan Yusi rushed out, fleeing in all directions, The real Lan Yusi among them thought she was in the clear. However, when he saw this desperate escape attempt by Lan Yusi, he just smiled with a crazed look. He just activated his Shenhuang martial arts as countless dark and red evil shadows burst out from his body. Using the imprisoning the devil in the flesh and demonic illusion simultaneously, the released dark and red chaotic shadows transformed into numerous magical beasts, which quickly surrounded and attacked every Lan Yusi. And unfortunately for her, her clones were not as numerous as Ihi's evil shadows. Although in terms of strength, her clones could suppress 1 or 2 evil shadows, the number was simply too overwhelming. She also had no idea what they were and was scared shitless to even resist. He just laughed with an expression of a mad joker. Lan Yusi was completely at his mercy. She can't fight or flee, but she can accept her fate. Facing Ihi's tyranny, Lan Yusi surrendered and obediently handed over the sheep and the chicken pendant. When Ihi also demanded she tells them everything she knows, she decisively sold out her ally and informed Ihi about Zinchen's possession of the snake and the tiger pendant, as well as the abilities he demonstrated in battle. Then she proceeded to inform the two about the relevant information and speculations about Ouyang and Yan Zhengxiong in Magic City. Also, if Ihi wants to win the trial, he must collect all 12 pendants. Now that they had entered the late stage of the trial, if Ihi does not take the initiative to strike first and snatch the rest of the pendants from the others, they will take the initiative to snatch them from him. Since she's got no chance of winning the trial anyway, she figured she might as well use this opportunity to muddy the waters to stir up trouble and let the two sides kill each other. Lan Yusi gave a bright yet devious smile, and offered to take Ihi and Chu Zhou to find Ouyang and Yan Zhengxiong. But Ihi rejected her offer decisively, which honestly did not surprise her. After all, they were just rivals who had fought against each other, so it was normal that he would not trust her. However, what shocked her was the way he smiled as he kept staring at the fan beside her. And the moment he stated that he likes it, Lan Yusi had a bad feeling. Meanwhile, as the scene shifted elsewhere, Yan Zhengxiong and Ouyang were seriously making their way towards the explosion site they saw just moments ago. They had just encountered a group of ignorant guys who were planning to join forces to snatch their pendants. Although they were still a mob, it still took the two of them some time to get rid of them. They figured that at this point in time, Zinchen and Lan Yusi must have already found their target. But it wouldn't matter because no matter who wins, they can just snatch the pendants from them. All they can do is keep it for them temporarily. Although Ouyang words were extremely overbearing, Yan Zhengxiong didn't think there was anything wrong with it. In his opinion, this was indeed the case. Suddenly, his pupils shrank and he exclaimed in shock, questioning his friend about the corpse he was staring at. Ouyang also stopped, squinting his eyes and looking at the horrific scene on the street ahead. Zinchen's body was cut in half, simply and neatly, and had been thrown casually on the street like a dead dog, with shock and anger still itched on his face. It seemed that the sword that killed him was fast. So fast that Zinchen didn't have time to show any trace of fear, so his expression remained forever in the previous second. You see, a few minutes ago, Zinchen, who had managed to escape during the brief commotion between Lan Yusi and Ihi, was still railing about how monstrous he was. He didn't expect that he would meet such a strong and unfair guy before even reaching the imperial capital. Nonetheless, he took solace knowing full well that he had definitely crushed Lan Yusi by now. But Zinchen couldn't shake the feeling that he had also been marked by Ihi somehow, and will definitely be sought after. It seems like he needs to find and team up with Ouyang and Yan Zhengxiong from Magic City. In that precise moment, Zinchen heard the sound of a sharp blade dragging on the ground from behind. When he turned around, he saw a figure holding a long tang sword dozens of meters away. On his face, he wore a majestic and ferocious dragon mask made of cold black iron. He was over 2 meters tall, but his physique was extremely thin. He was wearing a black and gray rag suit that swayed in the wind. The most eye-catching thing was his eyes. He has double pupils, with 2 blood-red pupils squeezed in one eyeball, exuding a mysterious and eerie feeling that instinctively shows that he's not to be messed with. This was the first time Zinchen had encountered someone wearing a dragon mask. The feeling this mysterious figure gave him was different from other masked men he dealt with. No matter how agile the other masked men were, they always gave him a feeling of being dead. This masked guy, however, feels alive? The street lights built dozens of meters between the two flickered, as if the current was affected by something and became unstable. Zinchen swallowed his saliva and blinked, and the dragon-masked man with his sword seemed to have teleported, moving forward more than 10 meters, and all the street lights behind him went out with a sizzling sound. For a split second, the entire streets plunged into darkness and silence. When they came back on, Zinchen's body was cut in half. Blood spurted out like a fountain as the dragon-masked man grabbed the snake and the tiger pendant from the corpse, then disappeared into the dark and silent street. Back to the present, Yan Jingxiong was curious as to why Xinchen was killed on the streets of all places like a dog. As he examines the sharp slash on the corpse, Ouyang stated that it was done by the dragon masked man. The slash was clean and decisive. A one-hit kill, which shows that the opponent completely overwhelmed Xinchen in terms of strength. The only masked figure that can do this was the dragon mask among the 12 zodiac masks. Yan Zhengxiong was slightly puzzled when he heard what Ouyang just said. He initially believed the dragon masked man was only supposed to move around in the underground parking lot. Apparently, the first time Yan Zhengxiong and Ouyang saw the dragon masked man was after they had killed the dog masked man. Yan Zhengxiong was confident that although the masked man was very powerful, he would never be a match for the two heroes of Magic City. At that time, 20 freshmen followed the two of them. In order to win people's hearts, Ouyang, as the team leader, led everyone to the underground garage in the south side of the city. He heard that someone had witnessed the masked man there. The final result was that only Yan Jingxiong and Ouyang left there alive. When Ouyang first saw the dragon masked man cutting open the bodies of two freshmen like cutting melons and vegetables, he couldn't believe it. After all, this was the freshman trial of the Imperial University. How could anyone really die? But the hot blood was definitely not fake. Seeing Xinchun's tragic death, Ouyang expression suddenly turned gloomy as he recalls those unpleasant memories. Yan Jingxiong's voice brought Ouyang back to reality as he asked what their next move should be. Because the pendant on Xinchen seemed to have been taken away, Ouyang explained after briefly thinking things over. He deduced that the reason why the dragon masked man left the underground garage was probably because the freshmen, had completed a certain condition, like a situation where all the masked men had been defeated. Which means the restrictions on the final boss had been lifted and he can now move freely. Just like how the ordinary Zodiac masked men automatically hunted down every freshman. Perhaps the dragon masked man's objective was to take the initiative to hunt down every freshman in possession of a Zodiac pendant. At present, it's impossible to fight against the dragon masked man in a head-on confrontation. They must be one step ahead of him and snatch the pendants from the others. They absolutely cannot let the pendants fall into his hands. Ouyang made up his mind that he would take the initiative to send out signals to attract the other pendant holders and fight them to the death. He activated his fourth order king bloodline awakening, the golden winged dragon. Ouyang body burst into golden light. A few feathers grew on his cheeks. A pair of platinum-colored winding dragon horns grew on his forehead. And a pair of domineering golden feathers more than 4 meters wide and mixed with dragon scales spread out. Ouyang flapped his wings, flew high into the sky, and let out a provocative cry. The sound of golden martial energy spread throughout the city. Ouyang was calling for challengers. Elsewhere in the dead city, Lu Qingzhu, who was in the first carriage of the Imperial train and was among the first batch of freshmen to be drawn into this strange city, was currently hiding in a ruined building with her wounds still untreated. After she and 2 freshmen teamed up to kill the Minotaur masked man, they mistakenly entered an underground parking lot and encountered the mysterious masked man holding a tang sword and wearing a dragon mask. One teammate was killed on the spot. If more than 20 people had not come in later and attracted the attention of the dragon masked man, she knew that she would have died there. But even though she came out alive, she was severely wounded by the sword energy of the dragon masked man. Fortunately, she and another survivor met a teacher from the Imperial University, who claimed that the Imperial University train had been attacked. With the professors and several other teachers currently missing, he had a way to get someone out of the city to warn everyone. Lu Qingzhu chose to let her fellow freshman leave the city on the grounds that she was seriously injured. Before that freshman left, she inexplicably thought of Yi. She took out a photo of Yi and for some unknown reason, asked the freshman who went out to warn Yi not to come there. Lu Qingzhu had been quietly recuperating after that when she saw the blue explosion in the sky. She immediately realized that Yi had entered the city after all. This was unfortunate, and on top of that, she didn't even have the energy to look for him. However, she believes that with Yi's brute strength, as long as he doesn't face the dragon masked man, he wouldn't lose to anyone. Just when she had barely regained the ability to move, an extremely aggressive cry reached her ears, the call of a high-level bloodline of the same kind as hers. Lu Qingzhu's heart tightened as she wondered whether she had been discovered. In her current condition, there is no way she can escape. The other party has sensed her aura and will definitely come to snatch the pendant from her hand. Though she doesn't care much about it, she has a feeling that he definitely needs it. So at the moment, she can't have a head-on confrontation with them, but can only lure them at the underground parking lot. Ouyang stood high in the sky, and a faint blood connection made him look in a certain direction. He remembered this feeling. He had sensed it from the girl who was almost killed by the dragon masked man in the underground parking lot. Ouyang recalled her name as Lu Qingzhu. You see, during the college entrance examination, He heard that the impoverished Lu family had someone who had awakened the bloodline of the nether bird. And because they were both of the bloodline of a divine bird and a high-level magical beast, Ouyang had specially looked up Lu Qingzhu's information. But he heard that she was defeated by an unknown person in the competition. As expected, the Lu family was still in decline. Even with the emergence of a powerful bloodline warrior, they still couldn't change their decline. Lu Qingzhu seems to have the ox pendant, which is quite a pleasant surprise. Without waiting for the mysterious freshman and Lan Yusi to come over and challenge him, Ouyang flapped his wings and disappeared on the spot after informing Yan Zhengxiong that he was going to apprehend someone, so he should wait where he was.